We've seen a lot of videos about people quitting Airbnb, and some of our full-time travel YouTuber vlogger friends have decided to quit Airbnb and just use other types of accommodation in their travels. So we wanted to hop on and give you our perspective from our unique situation on what we think about using Airbnb versus alternatives. But first, to introduce ourselves, for those of you who don't know us,
I'm Ian.
He's Ian. I'm Dara. And I started this Magenta Otter Travels YouTube channel about 5 years ago. We spend at least 7 months a year living here in Texas. And then we spend 3 to 5 months a year living in our flat in England and also traveling around Great Britain and Europe. When we are over there, we stay in our flat, but we also travel around a bunch. And when we're here in the US, we go visit friends and family within the US. So we have lots of opportunities to stay in lodging of various types when we travel. And we have not totally quit using Airbnb, but we do kind of have some parameters that we've learned through trial and error that we use when we're choosing to stay at Airbnb.
Yeah, for example, we look for properties where we have the whole home and we're not sharing a room, for example, in somebody's home. That's just, we feel like that's just a little awkward. We also look for properties where there aren't exorbitant fees that are tacked on, like big cleaning and service fees. You've always got to watch out for those because they're not initially shown.
Right. At first, you'll see just when you're like looking at a map, you'll see price per night for a whole bunch of properties.
Yeah.
Then when you put in the dates you're staying, it will tell you the total amount that you would pay for that stay of however many nights. And that's where, like Ian's saying, you'll have a line for cleaning fee and a line for the service fee. And we've seen those vary wildly, haven't we?
They do. They definitely do. And one thing that I try to do, if it's possible, is find out what the property is and try to book with them directly if that's possible, especially with other aggregators like booking.com, same thing. I try to book directly so that they get the benefit of not having to pay fees to a third party.
Right. And if you stay at an Airbnb, which we've done, that we love, we will then take their contact info so that in the future we can contact them directly and they're not having a cut of their revenue going to the Airbnb.
The other thing we try to do is we try to get a booking where we're not having to pay everything up front, because we're often booking way in advance. Sometimes as much as 10 months in advance. So we don't want Airbnb holding all our money during that long period of time.
Right. A lot of times there's an option. You can pay a fraction of the total amount of the stay at the time of booking and then pay the rest of it later. And we opt to do that because it's better to just hold on to our money as long as possible rather than them getting to sit holding our money.
Yeah.
Because obviously when you book at a hotel, usually you're not paying anything up front. So you're just doing a booking, it's fully cancelable. So that is an advantage to staying at a hotel, but there's still a lot of reasons why we think there's an advantage to staying at Airbnb, and we will get into that. But another watch out that we wanted to talk about with Airbnbs is reviews. User reviews are really helpful to read, but you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt because any really negative reviews could have been removed. So there's that possibility. And also there's the fact that when we stay someplace, we're reviewing that property and frankly, the owner of the property that we were interfacing with, the host. But then they're also reviewing us. So people care as guests what their review is. So I feel like sometimes people don't want to say anything too negative because they're afraid that they will get a bad review. So you want to be a good guest. You want to have a good communication and interface with that host. But if something does go badly, sometimes it's a little tricky. People don't want to leave bad reviews, even if it wasn't really a great experience.
I'm guilty of that. Unless it's a really bad experience, if I feel like the experience was just mediocre, I'm just not going to bother leaving a review at all. And I know that's not necessarily the right thing to do, but also I feel like sometimes it's just personal opinion So I don't want to, I don't want to ruin somebody's business. If they're doing a good job, they're working hard, they're putting in their best effort.
On the other hand, as a guest who's choosing a potential place to stay, you really want to know what the properties are like. Sometimes it's a hard decision choosing between properties, and you want to have the best information possible. So I kind of have an approach of amplifying whatever is said in those reviews, because that's probably closer to the truth. So let me give you an example of what I'm saying. If they say that a place is looking dated, that might mean it's really run down and dumpy. If someone mentions at all anything about it not being clean, I would absolutely avoid that place. What I want to look for is people who go to the trouble of saying it was scrupulously clean, it was spotless, because that's what you want. Like, kind of dirty is not okay when it comes to the cleanliness level of a place that you're staying for Airbnb. Another thing I look out for is properties that only have a few reviews, because sometimes they're brand new, and let's face it, they've gotten their friends and relatives to stay there and write some nice reviews. So I'm not saying we've never stayed at a new place when we haven't had a choice or that's the best option, we've taken a risk, but just realize you're taking a risk, because a place with very few reviews might not really be whatever it says it's like in the reviews.
But then it could be really nice because it's, it's newly done, and they're trying really hard to build up their clientele. So it could be really good. So that's always a tough call.
Also, you can get a better deal sometimes when they're trying to build up their business. So I'll link in the description, and we're going to talk about it later, but a place that we stayed in Yorkshire, which we absolutely loved, that Airbnb, I think that one had very few reviews because it was relatively new, but it was awesome because it was so new. And the other thing I would say is if they mention anything negative about the owner and something real, as Ian's saying, sometimes people are just cranky pants and they will complain about everything. So you can kind of tell, same thing with when we read TripAdvisor for hotel reviews. If they're like, the people at the front desk were so rude, that you can just tell that by the way the person writes the review, that the problem is them, not the front desk. But similarly, if people complain about the host badly, I would kind of amplify that and say, probably better to avoid that situation, because you don't want to have a problem with a host. Most of the time, in my experience, most of the hosts for Airbnb are fantastic, and people will make a point of saying that. And those are the places you want to stay.
But don't base your decision based on the personality of the host. Someone that's really nice, that doesn't necessarily translate to a really great place to stay.
Yes, and I feel like and that's another watch out. If all the reviews just talk about how nice the host is, and you're looking at the pictures and saying, is this place really small? Is this place really dumpy? If all the reviews only talk about how nice the host is, I probably wouldn't stay there. Stay to the end of the video and we'll tell you about our very best Airbnb experiences so that you can learn from our experience. We like to vary the types of accommodations we stay in, especially if we're traveling for a long period of time. So for example, last year we stayed in England in our flat for 3 months, and then for 2 months solid, we traveled all around on the European continent in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. We stayed in a lot of places, and we're going to talk about that more in our next video about fast versus slow travel, but we stayed in a lot of places. And the reason we like to stay in different types of accommodations is that there are things that are important to us, like having a place to work out, being able to eat healthy food, being able to do our laundry occasionally. So let's say we've stayed in a hotel that has a great fitness center that's free that we can go to every day. That's awesome. But if it doesn't have a laundry, we might then stay at an apartment hotel or an Airbnb after several days, just so that we have a chance to cook for ourselves and do laundry. So if we vary back and forth, there's pros and cons to staying in different types of accommodation. and we don't need to wash our laundry every day. So sometimes we mix it up.
Budget has something to do with it as well, because this can get very expensive very quickly. So what we do is we use our points. We use the free nights that we get to decrease the cost. We use those on the most expensive places, super luxurious hotels.
We don't pay full price at expensive hotels.
Yeah. So we'll often stay at an Airbnb or a budget hotel, like we stayed at Ibis hotels when we were on the continent. That some of those were near the train stations were super cheap. They're very bare bones, but they were fine. And then we'd mix that up with nicer places.
Right. And also it's your travel schedule, right? So let's say you are going from point A to point B, it's pretty far, you're stopping in the middle, you want to stay near a train station. Staying at a budget hotel like an Ibis or a Premier Inn or something like that, that might be a good choice because you're not going to be there that long. So, pay the least you can. We stayed in a little bit scuzzy hotels, I'll be honest, at train stations in a couple places.
Yeah,
But then, not long thereafter, we were able to stay in some really nice hotels. So it all worked out. And we also, when we were planning that trip, we had periods of time where we needed to stay in a city for 7 or 10 days because we didn't want to be changing so frequently. And frankly, I needed a place where I could sit down and edit videos for a while and not just be a mad dash tourist every day. So when we had those longer periods of time, staying at an Airbnb was a good option because it let us save some money. If we stayed for a certain number of days, several days or longer, there were economies of scale because lots of time that cleaning fee or the service fees, that is a fixed rate whether you stay one night or 10 nights.
And the nightly rate often decreases the more nights you stay.
Right, where it might not in a hotel. Another thing we sometimes like to sprinkle in there is, when possible, staying at a regular B&B where you actually get breakfast. Isn't that funny? Airbnb.
There's no B&B. There's no B in the B&B.
The first B is bed. But with
Yeah.
Airbnb, it's extremely rare that you get a breakfast included. So I think that the Airbnb name is a little bit flawed in that regard, a little misleading. But sometimes we like to stay at a small inn, hotel, or regular B&B where you get an awesome full English breakfast, full Scottish breakfast, whatever, amidst the other types of accommodations we're staying at. And we like to be able to cook for ourselves so that we can eat healthier foods and not just be eating Bavarian, meat, potatoes, and sausages every meal. So to be able to get some fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy food cooked.
And fresh pastries, of course.
Yeah.
Gotta hit the Bäckerei in Germany, for example.
Yeah. But in between Ian going to the bakery, I need to have some vegetables. So that's why it's a good choice for us to stay in a Airbnb. And actually was the perfect combination when we were in Ghent because we stayed in an awesome Airbnb that had a bakery right across the street.
Yeah.
And a supermarket really close. So best of both worlds. So let's talk about alternatives to Airbnb because we don't stay in Airbnb exclusively, but when we're choosing places to stay, we like to go to booking.com or other aggregators and see kind of what the whole scope is of types of accommodation in an area. If we're staying in a place where there are lots of hotels of various types, we might opt for a hotel instead.
We've also been known to use VRBO.
Right, definitely. So VRBO or Airbnb lots of times are good when you're staying in a more remote place that just doesn't have hotel options. Another thing that we really like, and I think we only just started staying in them this last year or so, are apartment hotels. And you're not going to find those in a tiny town or village, but in a larger city, apartment hotels can be a great option.
We actually found a really great apartment hotel in Nuremberg through Airbnb.
And we stayed there at least a week, I think.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a great home base for us because it had, full apartment with a living room, kitchen, nice bathroom, and then it had laundry facilities on the floor we were staying at. It had a fitness center in the basement, which was a huge bonus. We didn't know about that we were going to get a free fitness center. And then what really blew my mind, and I didn't know about this till we got there, it wasn't kind of advertised in the listing, is they had a media room and a shared workspace area. So there were monitors and keyboards and mice. You could just go with your laptop and plug in. So for me, being able to edit video and have that second monitor to doing editing, that was fantastic. So having that type of a place where we could live and do the things we need to do, working out, cooking, doing our laundry, editing video, that was great. And definitely things that we wouldn't be able to do in a normal hotel. Another option that a lot of full-time travelers use is house sitting. That's not something that we have opted to do because when we travel, we don't really stay in a place for weeks or a month or more at a time. So we haven't really explored that, but if you are planning on traveling for months at a time and staying in a country or in a location for that long, definitely house sitting is something that you should consider as an alternative to Airbnb. But we don't stay in places for a month or more at a time, which leads us to the topic of our next video, which is fast versus slow travel. So stay tuned for that because when I publish that video, we'll talk about our choice for fast versus slow travel, what our experiences have been, and how we have netted out and what our approach to travel is, especially in this coming year. But before we finish this video, I want to tell you about our best experiences with Airbnbs. The last place we stayed when we traveled was actually here in the US. Over Christmas, we went to Utah to visit family, and Ian and Trent and I stayed in an Airbnb, and it was amazing. It was just like home. And I will include the video summary of that now so that you can see how great Airbnbs can be, and that's why we still stay at them. Most of the time we stay in Airbnbs in Europe or other places outside the US. But now we are staying in this really cool Airbnb here in Utah because we came here to spend Christmas with our family and gather other family members who don't live here to join us. So it's going to be a really fun place to stay. It really has everything just like home. I'll show you what I mean. We're staying in this nice big family home that has a walkout basement apartment. And these are somewhat common here in Utah. And it's amazing what a nice apartment it is. Here is the living area. It's just huge. It's really nice and spacious. Got 2 full-size couches. Nice lazy boy for Ian to fall asleep in when he's sitting here talking to us. And down here is the kitchen, which has a table for 4. And it's just a really nice kitchen. I mean, that is a very expensive high-end refrigerator, nice dishwasher, big oven and stove top, built-in microwave. And then this is the thing Ian and I are most amazed about. Not only does it have a blender, it has a BlendTech blender just like the one we have at home. And that is an expensive, like $400 or $500 blender. So we're thrilled to have literally all the comforts of home. This is the bedroom where our son Trent will be staying. And it's really quite spacious. Has a queen size bed. And then right next to it is the hall bathroom, which has 2 sinks and a tub with shower over it. And again, just really spacious. Here is the bedroom where Ian and I will be staying. It is an ensuite, has a nice queen size bed and TV on the wall. The ensuite bathroom to this bedroom is really quite spacious, has a huge vanity with 2 sinks, lots of towels, and nice big shower. This Airbnb really has everything. All the little details have been covered. Like there's a coffee maker, 2 kinds of coffee, a full contingent of spices for everything you want to make, and all the baking pots and pans you might possibly need as well. Even things to put your leftovers in. Not only did the shower have shampoo, conditioner, and body wash, but also there's cotton buds and cotton balls, a hairdryer, and a lighted magnifying mirror, and even little makeup remover cloths. And this laundry room is really amazing. I have never stayed in an Airbnb that has a laundry room like this, just all to ourselves. These 2 massive, amazing washer and dryer sets, so that'll be great. And the laundry room also has a full-size ironing board and iron, stain spray, detergent, even bleach pods, and a lint roller. See the description or click on one of these boxes to see about our Airbnb experiences in Yorkshire and Rothbury. Thanks so much for watching this video, and do something good in the world today.